Hi, I'm Cheryl, and the Christmas card we're making today is not one I surely wouldn't want to make 40 or 50 of them, but it sure is pretty. Um, Save this one for special people on your Christmas card list. But this is what we're going to need today to make this card. We need a piece of Whisper White cardstock, and this is 5.5 by 8.5, and it's scored and folded at 4 1/4. We need a little bit, just really almost scraps of gold foil paper, because we're going to cut out a little deer and some tiny little stars. I have them already cut out, and I have them in this little lid so that I don't lose them. And some white glimmer paper, and you'll need a piece. Let's see, where's that piece I cut it out from? You'll need a piece that's about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 3.5 by 2.5. So just a little piece of the white glimmer paper, a piece of soft sky cardstock, and this is 5.5 by 4 1/4, and another piece of Whisper White, 5.5 by 4 1/4 also. I'm using the Carols of Christmas stamp set, and we'll be using the Peace on Earth stamp from this, as well as the dies to cut a lot of things. We need our little, you'll need your little deer die, your 2 tree dies, and then there's this really cool die here. It has the moon and the stars. That's where I got my stars from. I used, there's one, let me get that up here. There's this one right here. That's that kind of a diamond shape, and it's the largest star. And then you'll also want, you'll want one of those, and then you'll also want 4 of these small 5-pointed stars. And then this is so nice. This I can see I'm going to be using this all year round, even though it's a Christmas set. But this border we'll be using, and I'm going to show you how to do this border. So I'm going to keep that out. Everything else has been die cut. My trees I die cut. Usually I will flip the glitter paper over and cut from the non-glittered side, but I wanted my trees oriented this way, so I had to cut from the glitter side, and I did have to shim that. So you'll probably have to fool around with it a little bit to get your trees cut out properly. Depending on your machine that you use, you may need 1 piece of cardstock to shim, or 2 pieces, or you might even have to go to your, if you have the what is it called, the special plate for doing detailed dies. So that may take a little fooling around. Okay, then I'm also using Season Like Christmas. Okay, I'm using, let's see, what did I use? I have it all set up. I use, let's see, Wishing You a Beautiful Christmas. That would be this one right here, this stamp from this. And then from Star of Light, I used, well, let me just look in my card. That'd be an easy way to do it. The Light the Shepherd Saw That Night. I'm using that stamp right there. And I have those already set up on a new toy I got. My son and daughter-in-law got this for me for my birthday. I got the Tim Holtz stamping platform. By the Tonic Studios makes this. And this is a wonderful thing. I have this already set up on here, and if I did want to make a bunch of cards I could make a whole bunch of them, and I can stamp both of these inside sentiments at the same time on my card, because there's plenty of room on this platform. And actually let me get this opened up here. My stamps wanted to stick to it, but it's open on the side and the bottom, so you could put as big of a piece of paper as you wanted in here. So I've got that off to the side here. We'll be using that in a little bit. If you don't have that, well then you'll just have to stamp them one by one the old-fashioned way. And I have my paper cutter over here, also my paper trimmer. I have, I'll be using my Layering Ovals Framelit dies. Using Tranquil Tide and Night of Navy. So we're doing sponging with those. So I have 2 sponges. I've got this big makeup sponge that's going to be used for the card front, and then I have a small one here, and I'm going to be using that to color my white glimmer paper. So we're gonna add a little color to our trees with this small stamp. Okay, on the other side I have my Sizzix Big Shot. I have the magnetic plate and a couple plates here. I have a piece of cardstock shim, and then I have my 2 plates and my magnetic platform, and we'll be using that, and as well as a piece of tape to secure our little border die when we cut that. I have these little tweezers. And I think I'm going to need these to place my stars. And I have Tombow glue and Stampin Dimensionals. And I think that's it. I think we're set on that. So let's do our die cutting first. Okay, so you'll want to cut your little deer and your stars out. You want to cut your trees out, and then we'll go on to the border. Okay, so I'm going to put, let me get my sandwich out here. So I have my magnetic platform, I have my shim, I have one of my plates, my cutting plates, I have my piece of paper here, and I'm going to center that on the top part of my paper, on one side of my paper. So I have that centered, and even though it's magnetic, I want to make sure that that's not going to move. So I'm going to put a piece of well-used painter's tape on top of that and run that through my die cutting machine. And man, that's a tight fit. There we go. So I should have cut that out really well, and it looks like I did. Everything's cut real nice there. I carefully pull this piece of tape off so I don't tear my paper. And there's my first part of my border is cut. Now, this is the fiddly part. You see down the bottom here, there's these 2 little dots, these 2 little circles, die cut out. You're going to take your die. Oh, I have paper in there. I'll just give it a little whack and get that out of there. Okay. You're going to take your die, and you'll be able to feel when it slips into those little dots. You're going to put your die so that the little dots are lined up. You can see from the back, well, maybe you can't see it very well from the back, but if you were looking at it in your, wherever you do your crafting, you would be able to see that. So I'm going to slide that into the place there on this side. I'm going to put a bit of tape there just to make sure it stays in place. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I can feel it. I can feel them kind of slip right into place here. It helps if you lift your die up a little bit. And there we go. I felt them slip into place. And I can put my piece of tape on there. And now I'll run this through. You know, I think I'm going to take the shim out. I don't know that I really needed that. It made it pretty hard to run through. So let's see how that works without the shim. I believe I had the shim in place to cut my trees, and that was the deal with that. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. And yeah, that looks like it might have cut pretty good. Let me grab my pokey tool, and I'm going to poke out some of these pieces just to make sure that they are cut properly, because otherwise I'll need to run this through again. And yeah, it looks pretty good. Looks good to me. Okay, so now we can carefully peel our tape off. Stick that on my, I keep these stuck around all over the place. I have some that I stick on my die cutting machine. Some of these bits of tape I keep just stuck here on my table where I work, the side I work on, and they're just handy to have around. So let me just pop those little pieces out there. And you see, now the border appears to be one big piece. Isn't that lovely? I can get rid of my big shot, get that off the table. It takes up a lot of room here. It usually lives on the other side of the room. I have just a separate little area just for the big shot. So now we need to trim this piece of paper down, because we want to have a little border all the way around here. You see, so that's why I have my paper trimmer here. And this usually gets used on my lap, but you wouldn't be able to see that because it's off camera. So I'm just going to go, and I have that, actually it's lined up pretty well, centered pretty well. If yours didn't come out exactly centered, this would be the time. You could trim a little more, a little less off of each side. I'm going to trim 1/8 of an inch off of each side. So get that up there. That's my scoring blade. The dark one is the cutting blade. And I'll just trim, line that up. And now you might notice on your trimmer there is no 1/8 of an inch marking. There's this little thing here in your trimmer, and it'll pop right out. But if you line that up with the edge of this, then that'll give you your 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so back to trimming. So line that up, trim, 2 more sides to go. And there. So now you know why I started out with a piece of paper that was just a little bit bigger. That gives me a little wiggle room that if I don't line this up real well, I can adjust. And so then it's not ruined. Oh darn, you know what? I need to bring my Big Shot back in, because did I tell you we were using these oval dies? I think I did at the beginning. But we need to cut ourselves a nice little oval out of the center here. And we're using, I believe it was the biggest one. Yes. Yes, we're using the largest oval from the layering oval dies. And we're going to line that up. We want to leave more room towards the bottom of your card. So you want the edge of your die like just maybe a scant quarter of an inch from the top, whatever side you're using for the top. Okay, so back to here, back to the Big Shot. Okay, so get that off. There's all little bits of paper on here. And I'm just going to use my magnetic force from my magnetic platform to cut that. And there we go. And we've got our little window. Actually, it's a pretty big window. And now I can get rid of the Big Shot. So let me put this aside, because we're going to get messy now. And I'm going to bring in my piece of soft sky and my two little glitter paper trees. Now on the soft sky, I'm going to be using my Night of Navy ink. If you've never used a Stampin' Up pad, these are very cool. What you do, you just push and it unlocks it. You flip up and it opens to your ink pad. It's got this nice in the lid it makes a nice palette. You just slide this up and lock it in place. You're ready to stamp, or you could leave it open and use the palette on the top. And to get the ink on there, you close it up and you squeeze it. Now, my stamp pads, most of them I store upside down so that the ink comes to the top of the pad. But in the Stampin' Up pads, you see, when it's closed, it's in that position already. That took me the longest time to get used to, because I kept wanting to put my pads like this, but you want them like this. So anyway, let's get back to the card. I've got so much on this card to do, and I'm just talking about my ink pads. Okay, so I've got my sponge. I'm going to load that up with the Night of Navy ink. I'm going to get the trees well out of the way. And I just like to work it in the sponge off on the side. I have, this is a silicone mat. If you don't have that, put a piece of scratch paper underneath your paper you're working on and start off to the side and come in. But I like to do this, and I can start off the side on my mat, and I'm going to put a good amount of the Night of Navy along the outside edge of the card, and as we get to the center, we're going to make it lighter. So where your words will be, picture your oval, and your stamp here, your Peace on Earth stamp will be like right about in here. So we want to keep that part just a little lighter. As a matter of fact, down the bottom here, have to even get too crazy about how nice that looks, but just where our oval is. Okay. You just want it all kind of misty, night sky looking, with maybe there's some little clouds or something, real light wispy clouds. I'm starting to sound like Bob Ross, that painter. Have you ever seen him? So happy little trees. We're gonna have happy wispy little clouds. I get a kick out of him. Okay, so that looks good. That looks like a nice wispy night sky, I think. Let me grab a baby wipe here. And clean this all up. And I get all that out of here. And probably ought to wipe my fingers too. When I'm done with my sponge, I'll put that over there out of the way. And then we have our trees. I have my little sponge here. You use a big sponge if you like, but these are just little. So I want it. And the top part of the trees are going to show through the oval, and they're going to be against our wispy night sky. So those could actually stay white, but the bottoms of the trees are going to be against white. So I want them to stand out a little bit more. You could skip this step if you want, but I think it just adds to the card. So again, I'm dabbing my sponge out here on my mat, and then I'm going to start in from the bottom here, and then I'll go lighter as I get to the top and leave the top of them completely white. Okay, and we'll do that on our little single tree here. And there we go. Easy peasy, right? I still wouldn't want to have to do 50 of these cards, I don't think. Let me get a diaper wipe. We'll wipe that up. Keep this nice and clean. So we're getting there. We're getting there. Okay, so let's get our card base. And like I said, I have my two stamps already set up on my Tim Holtz stamping platform. And I just put my paper in like this to do that, and I laid my stamps on top of the paper where I wanted them, brought this down, picked them up, and then checked. There's a grid work in the lid. Can you see the grid? There's a grid work in the lid. Then I just checked to make sure that the words were aligned properly. Okay, so let me put my little super magnets down on here and there. Then I'm going to use my Night of Navy ink on this. I'll bring that out and ink that up. Now this lid flips over. One side is for rubber stamps, and one side is for the photopolymer or your silicone stamps, whatever it is you're using that doesn't have that padding. Like the piece on Earth, this is a rubber stamp, and it has this padding on it, so it makes it a thicker stamp. But anyway, let me just press those down real well there. We'll see how they came out. See if I need to redo it, and nope, I don't have to redo it Now I'm going to leave these on here. I like having this double sentiment. When I get a card that has two things, it's got something on each side here. I like that. It's like, oh, I had ink on my hand. Darn it. Well, anyway, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to grab another little thing here because I'm going to send this out to somebody. And I always keep, for times when I don't know what to do and I just want to come in my craft room, sometimes I'll just sit and I'll cut out card bases. I'll just cut myself card bases. Let me clean my hands up here. We're going to get rid of this. I'm going to throw that over the side. And I'm going to put a brand new clean card base in here. I'll ink this up. Again. And close it up. And press. And now, this time I'm going to check my hands first and make sure that I don't have any big glops of ink on my fingers. I always get inky, but I don't want any big glops. Okay. So, yep, came out nice again. So, like I said, I'm going to leave this set up, and I'm going to use this on probably most of my Christmas cards. But I like getting the two things. That's like getting a little bonus. Okay, so now we're ready to put our night sky down on our card. And I'm just going to use my Tombow. More down here. And I'll line that up on the front of my card. If you go like this, stand it up on edge and just tap it all around. That gets it lined up real nice. Okay. Then I'm just going to place this on top for the moment. Because the next thing I'm going to want to do is stamp my Peace on Earth stamp. And this will let me see where to align it. So again, I'm bringing the Night of Navy ink in. And I'm going to ink up the Peace on Earth stamp. And this is kind of fiddly because you want to get it in the window. And there we go. We got our Peace on Earth stamp is in our little oval window here. So let me take this off. Well, I'm going to leave it on. I'm going to leave it on here for a moment because this will help me align my trees too. So I want my trees, my two trees over here. I want them to end up just below my Peace on Earth. I want my other tree over here. I don't want that covering it up either. So now I know where I want to position them. And I'll put some Tombow just down on the bottom part of the trees. See, I'm just putting it down the bottom. And I'm just going to hold this in place. I'm going to put that right here. Maybe bring it in a little bit. There we go. That looks good. My happy little trees. Now I really do sound like Bob Ross. Happy trees. And this one I'll have that just a little bit higher than the other ones. And kind of come up next to my Peace on Earth sentiment. Then I'm going to get my little I'll get my little deer. Oh, stick on there. There we go. Get my little deer out of my lid here. And I'll put a little Tombow on him. Just a little bit. Doesn't need a lot. And he's going to go right here by this, the single tree. Stick on there, little deer. Oh, he's not wanting to stick. Let me try that again. If I have to, I'll use a dimensional on him. But he should stick. Let me just hold him for a second here. Okay. There we go. Now he's stuck. Finally. Okay, now I'll take this whole piece here. I'm going to flip that over. And if I can find my dimensionals again, there they are. I'm going to start putting dimensionals all over on the back here. Putting quite a few on. I want this nice, I want this to stay popped up. And maybe a couple here. This is getting to be quite a long video. Okay, peel them off. And one more. There we go. I think I got them all now. Now I'll line this up. I want about an 1/8 of an inch showing all the way around the edge. And then I'll just press it just lightly in place. And finally ready to do our stars. Okay, so let me dump my little stars out here and get my tweezers, and I'm going to start with my biggest star, and I'll put a little bit of Tombow glue on there. Actually, I think I put the Tombow on the card on my original. I'm going to put that, I'm going to give him put him right there. Okay. And that's what I'm going to do this time, too. Because these stars are very tiny. So I'll just put a little dot of Tombow there. There, we just want them kind of random. I'll put one over here. And maybe one right there. Them up with my tweezers and put them in place. Now, stay right there, little star. On my original card, I had more stars than this. But then I start thinking, well, maybe I'll be making several of these cards. So every little star that you have to put on takes up that much more time. When you're making cards for a lot of the same card, then that's something to keep into take that into consideration. But so there we are, we're done. So there's our card. We have our 2 sentiments inside, so your recipients get a little bonus. And if there are any products that you saw me use today from Stampin' Up, you can come and shop with me either through my Facebook page or my website. As always, I'll have a list of the materials down below that I used. And what else? I think that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Y'all take care, stay safe, and happy stamping.